Why can a life look successful from the outside and still feel empty from the inside? You get the job you wanted. The number in your bank account finally stops frightening you. People introduce you with a title that once sounded like proof that you had made it. And then, one ordinary night, you sit in your car, outside your own house, and you do not want to go in. Not because you hate your family, not because something terrible happened, but because you cannot remember the last time you felt fully present anywhere. At work, you are thinking about home. At home, you are checking work. And in the small distance between those two worlds, your life is happening without you. Daniel Mercer had spent 3 years waiting for one phone call. When it finally came, his daughter was waiting for him somewhere else. By the end of that night, Daniel would receive everything he thought he wanted, and lose something he did not know he was teaching his daughter to stop asking for. Hi, I'm Sarah, and this is Wise Mind Stories. In this episode, we are going to explore why achievement can fill a calendar without filling a life. What Viktor Frankl called the existential vacuum, and one question you can use tonight to begin finding meaning in the life you already have. But first, we need to return to Port Rowan at 6:17 on a Thursday evening. Rain was moving sideways across the windows of Everline's 22nd floor. Daniel stood outside the executive conference room with his phone in one hand and Sophie's folded invitation in the other. The invitation was made from dark blue construction paper. Silver stars had been glued around the edges. Port Rowan Middle School Planetarium Night. Underneath, in Sophie's handwriting, "Dad, my part starts at 7:10. Please don't miss Saturn." Daniel had promised, not the soft kind of promise adults make when they mean, "I'll try." He had looked directly at her over breakfast and said, "Front row, before 7. Then his phone rang. Martin Vale, Everline's CEO, asked him to step inside. The acquisition was entering its final stage. The board needed an operations leader who could keep the company stable through the transition. Daniel had done more than keep it stable. He had turned a failing regional network into the company's most reliable division. He knew the delivery times, the warehouse bottlenecks, the names of the night supervisors, and which executives disappeared when the numbers were bad. Martin closed the door. "We want you to lead the integration." Daniel felt his entire body become alert. Vice President of National Operations. The title he had pictured in airports, in meetings, in the private arguments he had with people who had underestimated him years ago. There would be more money, more authority, a larger team. And, Martin added, almost casually, a difficult 6 months. Daniel looked at the clock. 6:24. If he left now, he could still make it. Then, Martin slid a folder across the table. "The board wants your first 90-day plan tonight." Daniel's phone lit up beneath the table. "Elena, we saved you a seat." He typed, "Leaving in 10. At 6:48, he was still explaining driver capacity. At 7:06, he was revising projections. At 7:13, his phone vibrated with a video from Elena. He did not open it. At 7:41, the room applauded. Martin shook his hand and said, "You earned this." For 7 seconds, Daniel felt exactly what he had expected to feel: relief, pride, vindication. Then the feeling disappeared. Not slowly, it was simply gone. He left the building with a new title and a strange hollowness beneath his ribs. This is where many people misdiagnose the problem. We call it ingratitude. We tell ourselves we should be happier. We assume the goal was too small, so we choose a larger one. Another promotion. Another purchase. Another milestone bright enough to distract us from the fact that the last one did not reach the place inside us we hoped it would. Viktor Frankl gave that emptiness a different name. He called it the existential vacuum. Frankl was a Viennese psychiatrist and neurologist who survived Nazi concentration camps. Man's Search for Meaning is both a work of Holocaust testimony and an introduction to logotherapy, the meaning-centered approach he developed. Nothing in Daniel's comfortable modern life is comparable to what Frankl and millions of others endured. That distinction matters. Frankl's insight is not that ordinary frustration is the same as atrocity. It is that even when comfort increases, the human need for meaning does not disappear. We can have food, work, entertainment, and status, and still feel an absence we cannot name. According to logotherapy, one of our deepest motivations is not merely the pursuit of pleasure or power, it is the will to meaning, the desire to discover something worth answering with our life. Daniel had been answering targets, deadlines, performance reviews, quarterly forecasts. He had become very good at answering questions other people could score. But the questions that could not be placed on a dashboard had gone unanswered. Who was he when no one was evaluating him? What did his presence give his daughter that money could not replace? What kind of husband was Elena living beside? What responsibility had been entrusted to him, not to his job title, but to him? A full schedule can hide an unanswered life. When Daniel arrived home, the silver stars from Sophie's invitation had begun coming loose in his pocket. Elena was loading the dishwasher. She did not ask how the meeting went. "Where is she?" Daniel said. "In her room. Did she do okay?" Elena stopped moving. "She was wonderful." Daniel heard the restraint in her voice and moved past it. "I got it," he said. "The promotion." Elena looked at him. For a moment, he thought she might smile. Instead, she dried her hands and said, "Congratulations." The word landed with no warmth because there was no warmth left to spend. He found Sophie sitting on the floor beside her bed, still wearing the black shirt the students had chosen to look like the night sky. "Hey, astronomer." She looked up. Daniel lifted the phone. "Your mom sent me the video. We can watch it together." "It's okay." "No, I want to see it." "You can watch it later." He sat on the edge of the bed and explained the meeting, the board, the timing, the promotion. He explained that tonight would help the family. He explained that sometimes adults had to miss one important thing to protect many important things. Sophie listened with a calm expression that made him believe he was reaching her. Then she said, "I know, Dad." He waited. She turned back to the paper stars she was peeling from her sleeve. "That's why I told Mom not to keep the seat next time. There are sentences that begin an argument, and there are sentences that end an illusion." Daniel had believed the cost of his work was that his family missed him. The real cost was more frightening. They were adapting to his absence. The opposite of love is not always rejection. Sometimes it is becoming unnecessary. Later that night, Daniel sat in his car in the driveway. The rain had stopped. The kitchen light glowed behind the curtains. He opened the email confirming his promotion. Then he opened the video from the planetarium. The camera shook as Elena found Sophie beneath a projected field of stars. Sophie stepped forward and began explaining how light from Saturn takes more than an hour to reach Earth. She looked toward the empty seat beside Elena. Only once. Then she continued. Daniel replayed that moment 4 times. Frankl argued that meaning is not a single abstract answer hidden somewhere beyond ordinary life. There is no universal sentence that solves every person, at every age, in every circumstance. Meaning changes from person to person, and from moment to moment. The important question is not simply, what is the meaning of my life, as if life owes us a definition. The more useful question is, What is this moment asking of me? That shift is small, but it changes the direction of responsibility. Daniel had spent years asking what life would give him if he worked hard enough. More respect? More security? Proof that the sacrifices were worth it? But Sophie's empty seat revealed a different question. What was life asking him to give? Not someday. Not after the acquisition. Tonight. This does not mean every promotion is empty or that ambition is morally suspicious. Frankl did not argue that work has no meaning. Work can be one of the ways meaning enters a life when it becomes a genuine contribution rather than a machine for proving our worth. The problem was not that Daniel cared about Everline. The problem was that he had allowed one measurable role to consume every unmeasurable responsibility. He thought he was exhausted because too many people needed him, but the emotional reversal was this. He was not drowning in too much meaning. He was drowning in demands that helped him avoid meaning. Success becomes empty when it answers a question your life was never asking. His phone rang. It was Arthur. Daniel almost let it go to voicemail. It was after 10. His father had probably forgotten how late it was again. Then he thought of Sophie looking toward the empty seat. He answered, "Dad?" For several seconds, Arthur said nothing. Daniel could hear the low hum of fluorescent lights and a distant announcement over a speaker. "I'm at Bell's Market," Arthur said. "Okay. I can't find the car." Daniel sat upright. "Did you park near the pharmacy?" "I don't know." "Look at the aisle signs. Tell me what you see." Arthur's breathing changed. "Danny, I don't know how to get home." Bell's Market was 6 blocks from the house where Arthur had lived for 34 years. Daniel looked toward the warm rectangle of his own kitchen window. On the seat beside him was the promotion folder. In his pocket was Sophie's invitation, its paper stars falling away one by one. For the first time that day, the next meaningful action was completely clear. Not because it would advance his career, not because anyone would applaud, because one frightened person was waiting, and Daniel was the person who could answer. He started the car. Meaning, in Frankl's view, is often less like a grand revelation and more like a precise responsibility. It has an address, a face, a deadline, and very often it is inconvenient. Meaning is not what makes life easy. It is what makes a life worth answering. So here is the one practice I want to leave with you tonight. Before you go to sleep, write this question somewhere you will see it tomorrow morning. What is one responsibility only I can answer tomorrow? Do not choose 10. Do not design a new life plan. Choose one. It might be an apology only you can make, a call only you can place, a piece of work only you can finish with care, 10 minutes of attention that cannot be outsourced. Then do it before the day fills with louder demands. This is Sarah, and this is Wise Mind Stories. The emptiness in your life may not mean that nothing matters. It may mean that what matters has been waiting beneath what is urgent. Ask the question. Choose one answer. Give it a real place in your day. If this story gave language to something you have been feeling, subscribe to Wise Mind Stories. We tell the stories behind the ideas that can change how you live, not someday, but in the next decision you make. Daniel found his father that night, standing beneath the white lights of an almost empty grocery store, holding a bag of oranges he did not remember choosing. Daniel believed the hardest part would be getting Arthur home. He was wrong, because within 48 hours, a doctor would give their family a name for what was happening. And Daniel would discover that finding one meaningful action is very different from watching the future you planned disappear. Next episode, teaser. Daniel can answer one urgent responsibility. But Arthur's diagnosis is about to destroy the future Daniel assumed his family still had. When certainty disappears, what can a person hold on to without lying to themselves?